It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now, your host, Don Tony.
A little roll call. Shout out to Mikey Ravello's in the house, Anthony Wiggin, Nixie, Mark Hicks II, Austin Nance, Chaos, OTS Tribal Queen, Umar Hake. Somebody's tuning in 3 o'clock in the morning. What is wrong with you? Get some sleep. Michael Gonzalez, Roderick Howard, T. Kennel, Dayhawk. How's everybody doing tonight? It is Friday, March 1st, 2024. Holy shit, we're in March already. We're about little more than a month away to WrestleMania. And night one's match all but made official tonight. You know, I think we talked about it the day of the press conference. Triple H in that video package, very, very heavy on reminding everyone of WrestleMania 1, the main event tag team match, Hulk Hogan and Mr. T versus Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. Could we get a special guest referee for night one? Doubtful. Don't expect it. But I think we will be reminded. And plus, it's the 40th year. It is 40-year anniversary. It's interesting when I realize I didn't go to WrestleMania 1. Had the opportunity to do so. Did not think it was going to be that big of a deal, although I was most pumped for Billy Martin to be there. Billy Martin's my favorite manager of all time. That just shows you my age. Even though I'm pretty much a lifelong Mets fan, but Billy Martin, I just loved his style. Loved someone who's a little bit of an asshole, but gets the best out of his players. And he would never survive in 2023. Billy Martin would never be able to be a manager in 2023. There would be campaigns online. Baseball players today, not everybody, but some snowflakes. Oh my God. Ha ha. Never survive in 2024. Did I say 2023? How's everybody doing? I want to thank you all for joining me. I haven't been here on video for a whole week. I'm not going to lie, I kind of miss doing multiple days a week over here, but, you know, it's just the DTKC show is back, and, you know, people are starting to realize that on Monday nights, they're like pay-per-views. You look at the synopsis, we make sure that it is an event. It's an event. It's not just talk about Raw and a couple other things, but get into some really, really deep discussions. And a lot of our discussions you will not hear anywhere else. A lot of people don't have the balls to go where we go. And not only that, people are more about, you know, what's the in conversation. You know, even Tuesday on Patreon, I'm sure a lot of you by now heard the outrage that went down temporarily from Mansoor and a few others towards Paul Heyman. You know, because on Raw Monday night, when Paul Heyman showed up, you know, apparently there was a military guy that set himself on fire. I think at an embassy in Washington, somewhere. And somebody tweeted Paul Heyman and said, wow, you know, Paul Heyman and the Bloodline are trending higher than his libtard. And, you know, we learn now that Paul Heyman didn't see the story about this military guy and what he did in protest. He thought it was just some moron on TikTok, you know, trying to get 5 minutes of fame. You know, how many times you've seen these videos where somebody sets themselves on fire and then goes to run into the ocean, and sometimes they trip on the sand, and then it becomes into an emergency situation. So he thought it was just some jack-off doing a stupid stunt. And, Mansoor jumping the gun a little bit. Don't blame him. When you look at the war with Palestine and Israel, cannot blame either side, for how emotionally, attached they are. But even Tuesday on Patreon, a lot of people were calling for Paul Heyman's head. And I said, not for nothing. it feels like he did not know who this person was. I didn't even know who this person was, but, the Mondays have been awesome. We've only been back 1 month. It sure feels like a lot longer than that. But we are going to do some special shows in the very near future. WrestleMania is coming up. I will be doing 1 or 2 extra episodes here. But, it's also a little refreshing not to have to deal with the clickbait bullshit. Let's be honest. People out there, even Wednesday with Sting, I saw some super shout outs come in before we went live. So I prepared myself a little bit. But even Sting, Sting, Wednesday, his last Dynamite, and you look at the thumbnails, you look at what people are drawing in, Sting's last Dynamite. Do you really think that that's Sting's last Dynamite? But it's the draw. It's an emotional pull-in, and people run with it. And I look at it and I'm like, hey, the motherfucker is going to be on TV in the future. His contract is not coming to an end. He's still going to be part of AEW. So, why make this gigantic fuss about it? It wasn't wrestling on Wednesday. If it would have been his last Dynamite match, all right, maybe. But his last Dynamite, really? Let's see a month from now if Sting appears on a Wednesday night again. Something tells me that he will. But, it is what it is. But anyway, before we get into the show, rest in peace to Virgil. Monday, Kevin and I did a little tribute to Ole Anderson. I think our tribute was probably the most fitting. It matches the perception of Ole Anderson. When I see some of these websites, and listen, in defense of some of these websites, a lot of these people that run them are 20 years old, 25 years old. They never saw a second in their life about Ole Anderson. And they're writing that the wrestling world is mourning the loss of Ole Anderson. No, they're not. No, they're not. Legendary wrestlers to some point, but even Kev said it on his Patreon show last night. Ole Anderson just totally made fun of Ric Flair over and over and over again. Did not like Ric Flair and really belittled Ric Flair. And Ric Flair kind of kissing his ass after he died. Look, when people die, it gives you a reminder that you're mortal as well. I had somebody close to me pass away not too long ago at the age of 51. And that's younger than me. And I look at even Virgil's passing. Now, if you saw some pictures recently of Virgil, he looked like something was wrong. If you look at his face, you could see he was in some poor health. I'm not going to lie. I did not pay attention to Virgil closely lately. Every time I would hear Virgil, it would be like, oh, he's in Manhattan. He's at the train station and he's taking pictures with people. And he's legendary for doing that. He'll be in the train station, and it'll always be former WWE superstar or, $1 million champion. And he would offer to take a picture with you. And after you take the picture, he says, okay, give me $5. I guarantee you, Virgil went to the pearly gates and met God, if you believe in God, met God, and probably after shook his hand and said, hey, let's take a selfie, and he probably demanded $5 from God. I'm telling you, Virgil up there is causing chaos. But 61 years old, though, I'm pretty close to 61. Look, I'm not even mid-50s yet, but still, snap of a finger, 60 years old is here. And honestly, even though Virgil looked like he was not doing well health-wise, I still think overall he was probably in better shape than I am. So rest in peace, Virgil. Rest in peace. He'll always be known to me, with the gimmick with Ted DiBiase and that infamous picture of him at a merchandise table, WWE superstar Virgil, and there's nobody around him. And you kind of felt bad at that time, but, you look back on it now, I'm sure that table has some people around it. So, all right. What is the sit down? It is simple. It's the lazy show. I show up here with nothing. You dictate what we talk about tonight. If you want to be part of the conversation, if you have a particular topic you want me to cover tonight, all you got to do is be in a live chat. The live chat is free. Post a question. I will be more than happy to answer it. Want to post a comment? I'll be more than happy to share it. If I do acknowledge you, just wait a little bit, so we could share the love a little bit, and then, I can answer something else a little bit later. But before we start doing questions, SmackDown just went off the air, and obviously, if we did not talk even 5 minutes about SmackDown, we would be doing a little injustice. 45 minutes of the Bloodline. We had almost half the show of the Bloodline. Obviously, Tiffany Stratton, Naomi get no entrance tonight to speed up time. Bron Breakker beating Zion Quinn in 5 seconds because of time constraints. But, this was a big deal. Now, before we go any further, if you had blackouts on your TV, you were not alone. Everybody in the United States had the blackouts. Some people have told me that overseas, their feed did not cut out. Now, I wish people out there wouldn't always just take what somebody says and run with it. The same Matarazzi that said Jade Cargill was going to be in the Elimination Chamber is reporting tonight that the reason why the feed kept cutting out was because there was a fan in the crowd that had a sign that said, "Die, Rocky, die." Do you honestly think that Fox would zoom on that guy 19 times? I don't fucking think so. I wish people would not just take an assumption and report it as big-time news. I'll add one thing to it. If you look at the uncensored feed online, 3 different times that got cut out, that sign was not on the screen. I didn't count how many times it was on the screen, but it wasn't every single time, not by a long shot. Fox was censoring part of it. But let me go one step further. If Fox wasn't trying to censor part of The Rock talking about crack and meth and things like that, there'd be no reason to cut the audio. You would just have a black screen and you would still hear The Rock. Did anybody notice that when it would go silent, it would come back and it would sound like The Rock was 3 sentences ahead? Did anybody notice that? I noticed it after the 3rd time that the screen went black. I was like, he sounded like he said a lot more than just 2 seconds that were blacked out. It seemed like there was a delay and they were skipping through the delay. So I know it's early still, but for those out there that were questioning the screen going out, yes, we all dealt with it. So it wasn't just you. But people running with that it was simply because of a Die Rocky Die sign, no, don't believe it. Could it be part of it? Absolutely. But, everybody running to me and saying, because of this sign. I'm like, come on. Stop believing every fucking little thing that somebody says, because half the time they're wrong. So, there is an uncensored clip already online, Ben. I can't share it here because I'll get hammered for trademark copyright. But if you go online, you look around, social media already has, I think, 2 feeds that are playing. I'm sure some people will throw it on YouTube and maybe speed it up a little bit or distort it a little bit so they could get around the copyright issues. But if you look around, you'll find it. You'll find it. So, yeah, Sam says in Canada, they all got it uncensored. So, Sam, did they show the Die Rocky Die sign every time they went black? No, because I already saw most of the uncensored part. But it was mostly every time he was talking about crack and meth and going a little bit over the top. This is regular TV. And I will say one thing. Forgive me that my memory is a little bit shot. I haven't thought about the Nashville network in 20 years. I haven't thought about TNN, We Got Pop, in 20 years. But I do remember, for some reason, and I know I'm not alone on this, and I'm going to talk to Kev about it on Monday night, when WWE announced that they were going back to the USA Network and leaving Spike TV, TNN, whatever it was at the time. I remember a couple of times when they were mentioning it on TV, Spike TV would censor it. So they had to kind of like sneak it in and get past the censors. But I also remember something else. And, I'm pretty sure this is not just me misremembering things. As they got closer to them leaving Spike or TNN, whatever it was at the time, it was Spike TV. It had to have been Spike TV because I remember the script letters. They went a little bit over the top. It seemed like they were fucking with the censors a little bit more. Do I think WWE's fucking with Fox's censors right now? No. But I also think that, they're maybe pushing the envelope just a little bit more. And keep in mind, this is not your McMahon WWE anymore, even though people want you to convince that it is. With all due respect, you want to bring up concussion lawsuits, you want to bring up things that happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 25 years ago, with all due respect, under new management. If I buy a fucking restaurant and I have a brand new ownership and I have brand new people in there, and the people that worked there 15, 20 years ago, almost all of them are no longer there, why are people writing articles about shit that happened in my restaurant 15 years ago? There's nothing to do with Ashley Mazzaro. I want to make that clear. Ashley Mazzaro stuff is serious. But you also need to understand that this motherfucker lawyer came out of the closet, came out of the woodwork, I think that's a better way to put it, because of the McMahon lawsuit. All right? If McMahon and Janelle Grant or Rita Chatterton last year would not have resurfaced, this fucking lawyer would have been doing something else right now. So understand why some people are doing what they're doing, but I think WWE is pushing the envelope, so to speak, with Fox a little bit, leading into Mania. And it also goes to show you that The Rock, does like to curse. The Rock does like to get a little bit over the top. This is an extension of himself. I did see the 20-minute promo that he cut on social media making fun of CODY and making fun of Seth Rollins. Excellent. Kevin and I are going to talk about it in detail on Monday. This is all to set up WrestleMania. And I'm telling you, this is going to be a WrestleMania to remember. This is good. And we're not done. We're not done. You go to WrestleMania 41, Rock and Roman Reigns is pretty much the deal for WrestleMania 41. This year, the greatest tag team match in the history of WrestleMania. Next year, the greatest match in the history of WrestleMania. And the most beautiful thing about it is there's probably not going to be any titles on the line. Roman Reigns versus The Rock, WrestleMania 41, cannot have titles on the line. When there's no titles on the line, it's anything. It's a pick a winner. If Roman Reigns is a champion next year, I'm not saying he's holding a title between now and 41. I want to make that clear. But if he was a champion for WrestleMania 41, a lot of people like me would be like, Rock ain't wrestling full-time. Rock ain't wrestling even part-time. Who in their right mind thinks that The Rock is going to become champion? This is not a Sting situation in AEW where Rock wins the belt and then retires as a champion. So right on the surface, that says to me, I don't see The Rock winning the belt. I see Roman Reigns retaining. Again, this is why no belt should be on the line next year. Because now when there's no belt on the line, you could go either way. And even if The Rock would have beat Roman Reigns next year, there's no championship. Rock does not have to wrestle again in the near future. So I think that's where we're going. That's where we're going. So just to finish up a couple little tidbits on SmackDown tonight. Holy shit. Now, again, we were in Phoenix, Arizona. Not that far from, the West Coast, I guess you could say. Rey Mysterio, icon across the globe. Let's be clear. But when you get towards Cali, Arizona, Texas, I'm saying within the United States, that motherfucker is over like Rover. When his music hit tonight, I wasn't even watching the TV screen. I was preparing for the show. And I heard the pop and I was like, holy shit. Not too often you hear pops like that anymore. You think that I'm making it up. Go back to the clip, but don't watch it. Close your eyes and just listen to the audio. And you'll be like, wow, that's one of the loudest return pops that I have heard easily in the last 5 years. Easily. No, it's not bigger than Punk and it's not bigger than, a few others, but that was insane tonight. It kind of slowed down a little bit because Carlito is shown he can't go like he used to. Carlito is kind of like a special attraction, if you really want to be honest. And we kind of noticed that early in the year, that Carlito was being used very, very sparingly. Remember, he was supposed to fight Lashley and the match got canceled. And he was supposed to fight someone else and the match got canceled. And then I think a couple of weeks later, we see he's got tape around his shoulder. Carlito cannot go like he used to. I don't know if anybody expected Carlito to go like he used to. He could still do it. He could still do enough, in my opinion. But, him having the match tonight with Santos Escobar, the street fight, everybody getting involved. But in the end, Rey Mysterio saves the day. And, we get Carlito, coming out, over with the fans and sent home everybody happy. Tiffany Stratton over Naomi. Listen, Naomi's not getting buried. Tiffany Stratton, they're putting the Jets behind her. She's earned it. There's no animosity. Listen, when you have people online saying it's a black thing, ignore those people. It's not a black thing with Naomi. All right. Number two, it's not, they're treating her like they did when she left. No, it's called helping your fellow coworker. Naomi will be just fine. Naomi returned very close to WrestleMania. How many times, for anybody that's goes back with me in the DTKC show for years, how many times have you heard me say over the years and heard Kev say over the years, you know what? They're going to wait until after Mania and then they'll give so-and-so the push. The person that people remember most recently that we talked about back in the day was Finn Balor. Finn Balor, when he was first on the main roster and he was not being used all that much, people forget there was these outcries, loud, insane, trending outcries like, why are they not utilized? And we was, no, too close to WrestleMania. There's no real strong path. There's a path for anybody. No real strong path. Wait till after Mania. Wait till after Mania. Wait. Sure enough, almost immediately after Mania, they put the Jets on Finn Balor. With Naomi, she's established. We know what she can do. But she came back very, very, very close to WrestleMania. And there is a path for her, obviously. But it's not the path that you would have expected if Naomi would have been here for the last 6 months, let's say. Tiffany Stratton, they have the hot hand. They're going to run with it. Zelina Vega at one point was the hot hand. They ran with her. It happens. Everybody when Naomi was the hot hand a couple of years ago, they ran with it. It's just when someone else gets the hot hand and your favorite or one of your favorites doesn't, then people cry foul. And you have to sometimes take a chill pill and say, look, now is not the time. We got to wait until after Mania. Then let's see where it goes. I think Naomi will be just fine. I think she will be just fine. Bron Breakker being Zion Quinn in 5 seconds. That was more for time constraints. But Bron Breakker, I'm telling you, man, it's not giving me Goldberg vibes. It's not intended to, like spear, jackhammer, or whatever, Goldberg. It's not that. But they're doing the right thing with Bron Breakker. Bron Breakker, he's not slapping hands, but he's acknowledging the crowd. He's not dissing the crowd. He's going in there, taking care of business, doing as little as he needs to do, and it's impressive. It's powerful, and the crowd is digging it. I'm telling you, Bron Breakker, that is a pleasure to see going on right now. So we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes. And listen, the reason why it's not Goldberg 2.0 is because Goldberg was still green as grass when they were doing it. When Goldberg was doing that early on, remember the William Regal match, Steven Regal match. That was the day that they exposed Goldberg. You look closely, there's video clips online of him almost dropping Jimmy Hart on his head, Meng and others. Goldberg was exposed quite a bit. Bron Breakker is not green as grass. Bron Breakker, when he's doing shit, Bron Breakker can go. If Bron Breakker needs to go 20 minutes, he will go 20 minutes. But this is not AEW, where if Bron Breakker was on Dynamite, Bron Breakker would be forced to go 15 minutes because everybody's got to have a competitive match, unless your name is Wardlow. Or Powerhouse Hobbs for drips and drabs. By the way, did you all see the wise-ass response that Miro put online? Kevin and I are going to have some fun with that on Monday. Miro is not going to be on Revolution. And he posted on Twitter something about being injured and getting it addressed in January and this and that. And it's funny because people don't realize it's a troll job. Miro took on Andrade recently. If you look at the timeline, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's another guy. I can't wait for Miro to go back into WWE because I think Miro would probably have a good path. Right now is the right time to start getting momentum. We'll get into questions in a minute, but you might remember a couple of years ago when Roman Reigns became unified champion. He was still walking around with 2 belts, but you remember when people were like, oh, he should have a long run with both belts. And you might remember the thumbnail that I put with Kofi, Bobby Lashley, and a few others on it. And I wrote, be careful what you wish for. And it was not a knock on Roman Reigns. But when you have people have these long historic runs, Gunther, I'm not complaining. Roman, Usos, what happens? Everybody else that runs hot has no path. You're not going to stir up the Usos and ruin that run and take away from the moment when Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn dethroned them, like last year's WrestleMania. Roman Reigns, the day he loses those championships, it's going to be something that's going to be talked about for decades to come. Rhea Ripley, the aura of Rhea Ripley, you're not going to have that gone for even 2 days because Zelina Vega, you can't just enjoy the fact that she's insanely over and getting a moment in Puerto Rico. You got these numbnuts that are like, oh, they should have her win the title just for even if for a couple of days. And oh my God, you imagine these are the same people that said Mansoor should be Gunther in Saudi Arabia. You don't divert from what you are building. But in the process, when some people get hot, you run into a dilemma. In AEW, the rating system is kind of where that dilemma comes in. When someone is not getting the upper hand and is losing and losing and losing and losing, and then boom, out of nowhere, they just catch fire on TV. then you look at the ratings, the rankings, and you're like, oh shit, we haven't fucking put many wins against this guy for months. How do we get this guy back in the title picture? There's only so many times you could do a tournament. There's only so many times you can do something else to get a path to it. And that's why the rankings are a double-edged sword in AEW. I don't like them at all. Because when someone runs hot and their record doesn't look impressive and you're basing things strongly on rankings, then you got to fuck with it to get around it. And fans are not stupid, man. Fans are not stupid. Let's get into questions, because some of what I'm talking about has to do with what I'm bringing up. One last thing about SmackDown, though, because we only had 3 matches tonight, if I remember correctly. Randy Orton beating Austin Theory. Last week, Kevin and I said, I think we're going to get Austin Theory and Grayson Waller at WrestleMania. The response to that conversation is exactly the same reaction that we got a month ago when we said Sami Zayn is going to beat Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. Sami Zayn is going to have that moment, and it's going to feel like a world championship win because of Gunther's historic reign. We said that a month ago. I put the clip on YouTube, and what I got was wet farts in return. Oh, Sami already had the title. Oh, Sami's not doing nothing right now. Oh, I don't want that at WrestleMania. And then what happens 3 weeks later? People like, oh my God, Sami, historic. He's got to be Gunther. Yeah, fuck you. Seriously, that's what I have to say. And Gunther is probably going to lose his championship to Sami Zayn at WrestleMania. It won't be 1-on-1 unless they do a ladder match night 1, and the winner of the ladder match takes on Gunther on night 2. We could very well see somebody do double duty. And if that was me, I would do that. I would have Sami Zayn scrape and claw and struggle and put his body in so much exhaustion to climb up that ladder and get a championship opportunity. And then night 2, he's now got to go through Gunther after a painful agony ladder match on night 1. Ladder match night 1 could have Chad Gable and Ricochet and Miz and Dominic Mysterio and Jada McDonough and R-Truth or whatever else you want to do. But Sami Zayn overcoming the odds, winning the ladder match, and then you go into night 2, and now he's got to go through Gunther on top of it. Why don't you just either, how do I want to die? Do I want to be stabbed or do I want to be shot? Or do I want to be eaten by alligators? It's like he just went through a war. Now he's got to go through Gunther. It's almost like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, if anybody remembers. I played that game last week. You go through all these people, and you finally get to Mike Tyson, and boom, one punch, and it's gone. So that's what I would do. But tonight, once again, Grayson Waller kind of like feeding Austin Theory to the pasture. They're making fun of Randy Orton getting knocked out at Elimination Chamber, and Randy Orton and Logan Paul seems to be the match for Mania. And they're looking at the iPhone footage, and they're laughing, and Randy Orton's in the background. He's laughing with them. And Randy Orton's like, oh, how's about I fight one of you tonight? And Grayson Waller basically gives Austin Theory to him. And if you've been paying attention for the last 6 weeks, Grayson Waller, maybe unintentionally, keeps, fucking with Austin Theory. And I truly believe, I think we're getting that match at Mania. And I think it's going to be a better match than people expect it to be. But tonight, even though Grayson Waller got dumped on a table, in the end, Austin Theory loses. Now, Kevin Owens being on commentary and getting involved with this is going to lead to a tag match. I don't know if they announced it for next week. I don't think they did, because next week I think it's Cross and Lashley. And anyone in the chat, could you remind me if there's any other match next week that they announced? I don't recall if there was one, but we're leading to Kevin Owens and Randy Orton versus Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. And then something may happen there, and then that leads to, even if it's a friendly match, even if it's, who's the better guy over here, and they have the match at Mania. But yeah, Austin Theory pissed off he was pissed off at Grace Waller in Australia. That was a bizarre segment. Kevin and I talked about it on Monday. Grayson Waller is like, go ahead, telling Cody and Seth, do what you want to do. It was kind of bizarre. It felt forced. I'm looking in the chat. I don't think there was any other match announced for next week, but The Rock is going to be on SmackDown the next couple of weeks. Tonight was 45 minutes of the Bloodline. I had no issue with it whatsoever. Can you imagine if that was a 1-hour Rampage? You literally 3/4 of the show had nothing to do with wrestling. When you could have a strong storyline with characters you're emotionally invested in, sometimes you can use 30 minutes, 20 minutes. I wouldn't do 45 minutes every week. I'd be a little angry at that, but you could get away with 20, 30 minutes. And guess what? You could go 2-3 weeks and not have that person wrestle, and you're still emotionally invested. I brought this up many times before. We look at even Sami Zayn's involvement in the Bloodline. Outside of War Games, when you think of Sami Zayn highlights in the Bloodline, almost everything that people bring up first have nothing to do with a match. They talk about, my dog and getting Uzi and, trying to get the Bloodline to corpse in the ring. Most of the stuff we go to immediately have nothing to do with wrestling. And what does that do? It allows the person to rest a little bit. They're not machines. And sometimes that helps. Look at Solo Sikoa. Solo Sikoa, he hasn't really done much. He has a match here and there, but he hasn't done all that much. But, you give a little, you take a little, you use people the right way. Dream is asking if I like Chipotle. I think it's a little overrated. They do have some keto stuff there, but I'm on keto right now. And I thank you, everybody who noticed that I dropped a little weight, 15 pounds. Still wearing a continuous glucose monitor. I'm not a diabetic, but now I can see what spikes my sugar, and I'm avoiding things that spike my sugar, and not even trying. I dropped 15 pounds. So, all right. So let's get into questions. Now, obviously, as always, anybody that gives a super chat, it is appreciated. You will get a little bit of head of the line. It's only appropriate. It's only fair. So let me answer a couple of super shout outs that came in first, and then we'll head on over to the chat. And for the rest of the show, whatever you want to talk about, we will talk about. And I'm sure the questions will be quite diverse. So without further ado, let's give some shout outs here. Oh, let me take the Rock off the screen. Sorry, Rock. We'll get back to the Rock tonight. I'm not done. It just will incorporate it with questions. Sticky Fingers Frank, thank you, my friend. Now with the Rock, Roman Reigns versus Cody and Seth pretty much set for night one. How do you think we end up with Rock versus Roman? I see it like this. For the longest, I'll use Bayley and Dakota Kai as an example, because we didn't talk about that match yet on SmackDown tonight, but I am going to bring it up now for a reason. About 3 weeks ago, I said that Dakota Kai was going to turn on Bayley. It was obvious. I think most of you saw that as well. When they announced the tag title match for tonight on SmackDown, we knew Dakota Kai is not ready to return to the ring. So if you go back and you watch the clip from last week, what did I say? They'll have a tag match. Bayley will start. Bayley will do all the work. And then Bayley will scrape and claw and go for the tag. And Dakota Kai will say, fuck you, and jump off the ring. And Dakota Kai will stay with Damage Control. She needs to be the mouthpiece for the Yakuza. And this gives a little extra sympathy for Bayley. And that's exactly what happened tonight on SmackDown. So that's where we go from here. Now, what's the difference between Bayley and Dakota Kai, Cody Rhodes and The Rock? Okay. Kevin and I, when we were talking about the scenario of Cody and Rock and Roman and Seth, we said that Seth, Cody, and Roman will likely wrestle both nights on WrestleMania. Not The Rock, but the other three would. And the telltale sign of Cody and The Rock being in cahoots to screw Roman Reigns over. Remember the whisper in the ear? There was two scenarios they could go with this. Either Rock promised something to Cody and then stabbed him in the back, or they were in cahoots. Trust me, Cody. Watch what I do. Follow my lead. You'll finish your story. There was two ways to go with this. Now, last Monday when Kevin and I talked about it, Kev said point blank, and I agree with him, it would feel too obvious and too predictable if The Rock is in cahoots with Cody all along, especially when Rock is on this really fun heel run. If we find out it was all a setup, the crowd, might take a little bit offense to what Rock is doing. If you truly think Rock is being heel right now, listen, I watched the 20-minute promo that Rock cut on social media. I'm not going to criticize Dave LaGreca right now, but I just cannot be one of those fans that go to a wrestling event and I know cameras are there and I know what wrestling is, what it is. And yes, I love to have my disbelief suspended. For me, suspension of disbelief is number one. When you go to a horror film, your disbelief has to be suspended. Because if you know that everything you're watching is sci-fi and not real and it's all special effects, what do you care? When Jason or Michael Myers, kill someone, you're like, it's not real. Imagine you watch a horror film and every violent scene, you just sit there like, I would have done that. I would have done no special effects this way. That's not intestines. That's chopped meat. They're using raw sausage. Come on. You do that the whole show, I'll punch you in the mouth. When people scream and they close their eyes and they turn away, they know what they're watching is not real, but you have the suspension of disbelief for 90 minutes. You believe what you're watching is real. When you see good guy versus bad guy, when it builds up to the end of the movie and the good guy prevails, your suspension of disbelief is in full force and you just want to get up and cheer. That's what made Rocky Balboa what he was. Because if you would have gone through he's going to just fucking win at the end. He's just going to win it. And listen, when you got to Rocky 4, a lot of us felt that way. Rocky won, the first Rocky. When I watched it in 1976, I think it was, I was very, 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 very young. But I wanted Rocky to come back and beat Apollo Creed. I wanted the sequel. For me, Rocky 2 is my favorite Rocky of all time. Always was. Because Rocky 2 is kind of what Cody Rhodes was. We just didn't have a Solo Sikoa fuck up Rocky, the original movie. Rocky 2, he wins. Rocky 3, they started jumping the shark, but he beats Mr. T. Okay, fine. By the time it was Rocky 4, I was like, we know where this is going. But Dolph Lundgren did such a great job and they did such good work with it that even at the end of the movie, I was still cheering for Rock. And then they got to Rocky 5 and I originally was rooting against Rock. And then I found myself cheering for him again. When you do what you do really, really well, you forget that you're watching entertainment. So with Rock, you don't want to sit there from now to WrestleMania and say, it's all a plan. It's all a ruse. Him and Cody are going to screw Roman. It's a ruse. It takes the fun out of it. So for me, at this point, I believe that they definitely shifted part of the story. 99% of wrestling fans believe that as well. And I am with you, with one exception. CODY was always finishing the story. The "we want CODY" stuff was intentional. WWE does not flush 2 years of storyline down the toilet because The Rock became available on the board of directors. All right. CODY was finishing the story. But where it's shifted, in my opinion, now looking at it, and I don't mind changing my views on it, now looking at it, I think originally when Rock whispered in CODY's ear, I think originally Rock was going to help CODY set up Roman Reigns because Roman Reigns forgot where he came from. He went up tribal combat against Jey Uso. You know, even though it was the Elder's idea, that wet fart, you know, Roman Reigns became bigger than family. And I think Rock and CODY, that was the original plan. But then something shifted and they're like, you know what? No. Have Rocky align with Roman Reigns and go full-blown hardcore heel. And you don't know until it happens. You know, you could experiment. You could tweak. That's what wrestling is at its best. You don't have to make a script and stick to it full-blown to the end of WrestleMania. Fuck these writers, these journalists online, these podcasters. Fuck these people that if you dare tweak something, no, you go and you see, you feel the fans, you feel the reaction, you feel the response. We want CODY could have backfired. In Australia, there is a bunch of fans online that were orgasming when they heard fans going, CODY sucks. We had the biggest baby faces in the history of pro wrestling when WWE was regionalized here in the Northeast. And in New York, Madison Square Garden, those hardcore fans, more times than not, would cheer hard for the heel. Superstar Billy Graham was a massive heel. But in Madison Square Garden, they fucking thought he was badass. And they loved it. They didn't change the story because Madison Square Garden opened up the Superstar Billy Graham. No. But in this day and age, when you're trying to maximize ticket sales all across the globe and premium live events and pay-per-views and everything else, you know, you try something and you see what kind of response you get. They tease things on social media all the time. They will test things. They will see, most of the times we don't even realize they're testing stuff. You know, you'll hear an idea for a name of a team or this or that or this, you know, and they see what kind of reaction it gets. And if it stinks up the joint, or if someone does not get the response that they were expecting, they will shift it. They will tweak it. You don't just force it. That was a Vince McMahon thing that I always hated. You remember Vince saying it in promos, but he really meant it. That, I know what the fans want more than they do. You know, and that was the mindset back then, that they were going to have an agenda, whether you liked it or not. And I think that's part of the reason why some AEW fans are turning away, because it feels like things are being put on TV because the people in the back like it, and because they like it, you should like it. And very few people are having their story told through the eyes of the fans, because of the fans. You know, AEW put their little spin on it. Swerve Strickland, I think, is the perfect example of that. If Swerve Strickland wins the championship at Revolution, then I will say all is good in the world. But if Swerve Strickland does not win the championship at Revolution, everybody's going to look back on it and say, AEW motherfuckers couldn't just do a one-on-one with Swerve versus Samoa Joe. They had to fucking put Hangman Page in there So Hangman Page, they don't think it's strong enough to have one-on-one. So we'll throw Page in there. And because he's aligned with the Young Bucks, we'll just make him heel and do this EVP storyline. Does anybody honestly believe that the EVPs, this is not the NWO, that the EVPs are taking over? Does anybody out there in their right mind believe that when an EVP finds someone that they're actually being fined? This is not 1990 anymore. So, in my opinion, WWE definitely changed it a little bit. Now I think what's happening is Rock and Roman will face Cody and Seth night one. We've talked about it for weeks. But I think it's a disqualification. I think it has to be a disqualification. Do you think Roman Reigns is going to get pinned night one? No. Do you think The Rock is going to get pinned night one? No. I almost feel like it's got to be a disqualification. Maybe Drew McIntyre shows up and causes the DQ. That could happen. We could end up having somebody that has nothing to do with the match cause the DQ. And maybe Drew indirectly screws the Bloodline, but in the process also takes out Seth Rollins in this match. But they're going to, in my opinion, lose. And then there's going to be no Bloodline at ringside. Nick Aldis is going to insist that. Now, there's rumors that Tama Tonga is on his way to WWE. That kind of gets me nervous because he's not a member of the Bloodline right now. That motherfucker shows up and tries to help Roman Reigns. I don't want Cody Rhodes to continue into the summer or the fall still chasing the story. I'm tired of the story now. Finish it. Get it over with. Any of you out there ever have sex with someone and it kind of goes a little bit too long and either you or the person's like, just finish already? That's how I kind of feel right now. Yeah, that's happened to me in the past. So there's going to be a DQ, I think, on night one. That's going to screw the Bloodline for night two. Roman will lose the championship, and then Roman will ultimately blame The Rock. When Roman attacks The Rock, whether it's the SmackDown after, 2 weeks after, whatever you want to put the date on it, when Roman puts his hands on Rock, that is going to be earth-shattering for WWE fans, and that is going to set up WrestleMania 41. That is where this is going. Listen, we still got many SmackDowns between now and Mania. So things could happen on TV that'll change our minds in the next few weeks. But that's kind of where I feel it is right now. So hopefully I answered that. Because obviously this is probably the biggest topic of discussion for tonight. So BTC 316. What's up, BTC? Is that Bitcoin or is that initials for a name? Just a suggestion, you and Kev should do that Q&A here on YouTube, even if it's audio only. This way you guys make a few dollars that you don't make on Discord. I'll talk to Kev about it. We are doing a special Q&A episode in the very near future. We will open the thread up later this week for questions. If we end up doing it on YouTube, or maybe we could simulcast YouTube and Discord at the same time, yeah, it's a possibility. I mean, listen, it's no secret, obviously. We all do this. We have bills to pay, but we also don't do this just for the love of wrestling. After 30 years doing this stuff, everybody else is out there, deceiving and clickbait and do everything possible to get ad revenue. I mean, we should, if we can't get a couple of dollars out of this, then we obviously should be finding a different line of work. So we'll see. We will see. We'll definitely see. I'll definitely keep everybody updated. I got to talk to Kev first about that, but that's not a bad idea. Thank you for that, BTC. Mikey Ravello, I asked others for a serious answer, and all I get are stupid troll responses. Sting's final Dynamite rating was 822,000 viewers. No bump at all. Why do I think that is? And thank you for the generous 20 spot, my friend. Okay. Revolution is Sunday. I am not ordering it. I will watch the replay Monday or Tuesday. Might even watch it early Monday. You know, I'll see what kind of feedback everybody gives it. To me, I'm not spending that kind of money on that stuff. Here's my honest opinion. I did not watch Dynamite Wednesday. Wasn't interested. A lot of the matches I was not interested in seeing. Chris Jericho having a little bit of a history with Atlantis is cool and everything, but why do I care about Atlantis Jr.? I'm not trying to be a jerk. It's the conversation Kevin and I had on Monday. Why should I care that Un Akayama is wrestling? I've seen so many 4- and 5-star matches in my lifetime that I don't need to see Un Akayama and Bryan Danielson tear it up. It's not going to be must-see TV, drop when I'm doing to see it. If I was emotionally invested to see this guy get his ass kicked or to see him kick Bryan Danielson's ass, then I would watch it. Why in God's green earth would I want to see CML guys face the Dark Order? You know, O'Shea Jackson Jr., I don't follow his career. I didn't know anything about him beforehand. I know he got a lot of attention because he is the son of Ice Cube. He is an actor, and he has a couple 100,000 followers. So, of course, he gets noticed. But he said pretty much what a lot of you have said, what I have said, and a lot of other people have said. There's a lot of people on TV that are on TV simply because they can have a good match. But if you don't care about this person, if you're not emotionally invested in the person, you know, why are you going to watch it? I brought up off-Broadway plays in the past. I used to go to off-Broadway plays and watch them and be amazed by the work of some of the actors and actresses. And I've told the story countless times over the years. Stephen DeAngelis, Horshack, the former announcer for ECW. He was heavily involved in off-Broadway. I was his personal guest a few times to go to events that he produced. And I'll never forget, one time we drove in my boat 1984 Cadillac Sedan DeVille. We drove to Manhattan and we watched an off-Broadway event. And what it was if you took every Broadway play that was popular 20 years ago, what they did was they would have a scene from every Broadway play. Every Broadway play, there would be one scene that they would show. And the scene involved the stand-in for the celebrity. So you had the celebrities on Broadway, but on off-Broadway, you have other actors and actresses. If a Broadway star is sick and cannot perform, and you can't find someone else as the lead, you know, sometimes you have to go to somebody as a fill-in, or if somebody who is a, you know, secondary character or tertiary character, and they're famous, but you know they're not able to do it, you have people on the sideline ready to go. And I went to this event, and all it was a scene from every famous Broadway play going on at the time, but it was performed by the secondary actors that we never heard of before. And I sat there and I was like, holy shit, these people are incredible. And they definitely was good enough to be on Broadway. Problem is, nobody gave a shit about them. I didn't know any of them. I didn't go home and say, oh my God, I got to look into these people. I'm a fan. No, they were all people that were not famous, that we had no emotional ties to. So even though they were good, I enjoyed it that night, but I wasn't going back. It's the same thing about CMLL. It's the same thing about New Japan. Will Ospreay makes his official debut as a member of AEW, generates no increase. Sting's last Dynamite gets no increase. Why? Well, it's simple. Nobody believes for a second that was Sting's last Dynamite Wednesday. When you hype, announcement, hype, after a while, it's not important anymore. When I was a kid, my mom would buy me a 25-cent box of Cracker Jack, I would open the Cracker Jack and pour all the Cracker Jack and the nuts in a bowl just so I could get the toy surprise and open up and be like, oh, cool, an iron-on, a sticker. Look, Ma, I got the sticker on my head. And then you get another box and you'd open up, oh, look, it's a toy. Or you get a cereal box. After a couple of cereal boxes, you're like, it's a fucking piece of plastic. And then I eat the Cracker Jack. I open the box. I put a Cracker Jack in a bowl. I take the toy and it'd be like, and I just eat the Cracker Jack. The toy surprise didn't matter anymore because after a while, it's like, it's a big deal. Have your significant other surprise you in a negligee tomorrow. Then let he or she do it. He would be interesting. Just picturing that visual, but let her do it next week. Next Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Wear the same thing over and over again. Be like, negligee. I'm kind of used to it now. So these last this, first this and that. People are like, man, Sting, it's not his last Dynamite. Sting +2, listen, Kevin and I had this conversation on Monday. I don't recall this unbelievable, amazing outpouring of love and, towards Sting in 2019 or whatever it was when he got injured and he couldn't perform. And people were like, nah, that's it. He's too old and he's injured and he's done. I don't remember people in droves like this. And then I realized that right now it's not, it's different now because he's 65 years old. He's 65 years old. So now it feels like, yeah, that's it. But even the RIC FLAIR thing, RIC FLAIR, his last match, I couldn't watch it. It looked worse than bum fighting. His skin, I know I got flabby skin, but, that was pathetic. I've enjoyed Ric Flair's career. Do I want my last memory of Ric Flair? That? He looked like a 95-year-old man that just had a stress test done. It was cringeworthy. People that love Ric Flair, that are personal friends of Ric Flair, were happy Ric Flair. Ric Flair was this close to death a bunch of years ago. Ric Flair came back to the point that he had on his bucket list one last match. He got it. Good for him. But fans were not clamoring. Fans were chanting to Ric Flair the last 5 years, one more match. They were just being polite to the guy. I wasn't serious. You thought I was serious? Sting was a novelty. Having Sting in this company, AEW, for a couple of years, undefeated, after 5-0, you start realizing what Sting is. Oh, okay, we love Sting and we're going to pay him $5 million, $10 million, whatever the cost is. We're going to pay him so much money. And whenever he does have a match, he can do whatever the fuck he wants. And it'll be no rules, Sting's rules, Texas Death, Texas Roadhouse, Falls Count Anywhere, what's a ring rope, this and that. There's always something special, trios, anything where there's no rules because Sting cannot wrestle anymore. Sting, I'll never forget, had that one match. I think it was against the Acclaimed or Top Flight. It was one of those two teams. I think it was the Acclaimed. And I remember he got put in the corner and it was some type of a move. I was like, oh, the fuck was that? And then I was like, oh, it's a wrestling move. When you dive off a balcony, you dive onto a table, you dive onto people, it's scary, it's risky, it's an adrenaline rush. But when someone catches you, it's kind of like a soft landing. I'm not taking away from it. But when I did my indie crap, people dove onto me. And if I landed the right way, it was nothing. When I dove onto people and they caught me, I was like, oh, this is cool. When I got put through a table, the table, there's reason why there's legs. So it absorbs some of the impact when you go through it. Sting at 65 years old should be an inspiration for anybody. And someone asked me this on Patreon the other day. If I could rewind the clock 3 years, would I have Sting do what he did in AEW? My answer would be yes. I enjoyed what Sting did the last 3 years. But to me, it was a novelty. It was like going to an indie event. Oh, one of my favorites that's way past his prime is going to do a little bit. You know, there's a legendary match here in the Northeast that Mass Maniac and I went halves on. It was a match that people wanted to see 20 years ago. And it was so popular that it hit the Mexican magazines. I showed it a few times on these shows. It was Sabu and Superfly Jimmy Snuka versus Mexico's Most Wanted, Damien 666 and Halloween. Through my friend Mongo, God rest his soul, who was the agent, the guy to get Damien and Halloween to wrestle in the States, through my friend Mongo, he got us Damien and Halloween. And they took on Jimmy Snuka and Sabu as a tag team. It was a fantasy match that people wanted to see at the time. People wanted to see Snuka versus Sabu or them together as a team. It was so popular, it hit the Mexican magazines. One magazine did a 4-page story on it. Snuka looked like shit. Snuka did almost nothing. When Snuka dove off the top rope, I was thinking of 1983, and I'm like, oh my God. This is like worse than seeing like a baseball player on Old Timers Day. He did not look good. He looked sick, old, fragile. He almost looked like he needed someone to help him climb the top rope. And I felt bad. I mean, look, yes, we know now the story, that Snuka truly did what he did to Nancy Argentino. At that time, 20 years ago, we wanted to believe that it wasn't true, that it was a legit accident. Now my view has changed. But the thing is, Sting wrestled for the Mass Maniac numerous times. And when Mass Maniac would use him, it would be street fights. If anybody out there has old USA Pro Wrestling tapes, go look at the Snuka matches. It's always a street fight because he can't do what he used to do. It was a novelty. If Snuka would have retired in 1995, I would have been fine with it. So Sting doing what he's doing in AEW, it feels predictable. It feels forced. Just because I love someone in wrestling doesn't mean I want to see them fight. And every match they fight, there has to be special circumstances. They have to win because there's so much of my favorite, Sting. You will never lose in AEW. You will go in as a winner. You will leave as a winner. I don't believe for 1 second the Young Bucks are going to lose on Sunday. I could be wrong. But just like I thought the Young Bucks were not winning at Wembley, I say it again now. The Young Bucks are doing this, and if they lose Sunday, it's the same thing. We're showing everyone that we aren't selfish. We are. We don't mind losing. In the biggest stage of them all, we lost. That shows how much we care about AEW. That's how I feel about it. But Sting, we love him. We thank him for 30, 40 years of wrestling. It's amazing what he's done, 36 years, whatever. No, 40 years. It's close to 40 years, 38 years. But his run in AEW was a novelty. And it's like, okay, whatever. He's not going off in the sunset. He's not dying, thank God. He's going to appear on Dynamite. He's going to hit somebody with a Scorpion death drop in the future. He's going to be involved with Darby Allin in the future. So why did I care so much about Wednesday? I didn't. And the ratings should show that. They needed a 2-minute overrun to eliminate Sting being one of the lowest parts of Dynamite. This did not feel like Ric Flair losing at WrestleMania or the off-Raw footage where they did the whole tribute and everybody went into the ring and paid tribute to Ric Flair. Anybody remember that night? We got to see that off-camera footage afterwards. But the Sting doesn't feel the same. This doesn't feel like the movie The Wrestler. This doesn't feel like somebody past their prime that still thinks they could do it. This feels like someone who the owner beloved so much, paid him anything he wanted, promised him an undefeated streak. You're going to leave the company as a champion, and that's how you go out. He probably wanted to do it for his sons as well, which is perfectly fine. But a lot of the reasons why you're seeing Sting in AEW is because of the owner and what he wanted, not because what you and I wanted. Because if you and I wanted Sting in AEW or Sting in the WWE, I guarantee you, in 2019, that was only 5 years ago, or whatever it was, even let's go 10 years ago. If Sting was 55 years old in WWE, if he was brought into WWE with Seth Rollins and the Authority and Triple H and everything that they did, and they had Sting have 30 matches, and he went undefeated, and every match was special rules because Sting cannot wrestle anymore, cannot take the bumps like he used to. So we got to do smoke and mirrors. I guarantee you by match 5, people are going to be like, we love Sting, but come on, man, what the fuck? And I guarantee you, people would be looking at this much differently. Much differently. Okay. Shout out to Umar Hake. Welcome to the family, my friend. When you start tonight, it'll be 3:05 a.m. Thank you for the £5, my friend. Question: do I think Naomi should go heel to join the Bloodline? And my thoughts on Rey Mysterio's new goatee look. Whether he has hair on his chin or he doesn't, it doesn't change my view on Rey. Rey is one of the most beloved wrestlers in his country. You see Rey, Rey could still do what he does. He's not 65 years old, obviously, but Rey could still go enough where you don't feel like. Here's another thing with Sting. When you have somebody older, you don't want to feel like the opponent has to slow down tremendously for the person they're facing. If The Rock has a match with Roman next year, I'll do one better. Goldberg. Goldberg was beloved. Not beloved to that, but for fans, Goldberg was badass for a long time. When Goldberg came back, it was fucking cool. It was cool. When Goldberg beat Brock Lesnar, it pissed off a lot of people. When Hulk Hogan won the heavyweight championship, whatever it was, 2003 or whatever it was, people were angry. When he won with Edge, it was fine. When he won the World Heavyweight Championship, I think he lost it to Undertaker. People got angry because people felt like, they're doing this for nostalgia. He can't do what he used to do. Oh, bullshit. So what makes Sting any different? Why? Because he's 65? No, it's the same mindset. When you give that perception, look at Ric Flair to close out Dynamite on Wednesday. I didn't watch Dynamite, but I saw clips of it. Ric Flair's punching the Young Bucks. And it was like, if Ric Flair came out for a segment on Dynamite and I was stoned and I was thinking of something really, really stupid, like, dude, I haven't beat up the Young Bucks right now. Dude, I know he can't punch, but dude, I haven't punched and he's punching Young Bucks, and literally Prick Jackson is like standing there waiting to get punched. And I'm like, oh God. And then the nut shot. And I'm like, please just go off the air. It doesn't. Why? Because you love Sting and you love Flair and you want a little more nostalgia. But there's a reason why you don't do it on TV anymore. I don't care how much you love someone. I don't want to see Foley have one last match. And Mick Foley's in my top 5 of all time. I didn't want to see Terry Funk come back to the former ECW arena in his 60s, God rest his soul, his 70s, and do something more. Even guest referee and be like, oh. You know, come on. This is not like the wrestler of an old timer that still thinks Jericho's a different story. But even Jericho's not 65 years old. Rey Mysterio coming out with a goatee, he's got a little facial hair. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal. Naomi should not join the Bloodline. I do not think anybody wants to see Naomi as a heel. Plus, Jade Cargill, there's still, uneasiness as far as what she's going to be. Is she going to be a babyface? She's going to be a heel. A lot of people think she's going to be a babyface. I'm not so sure with that. I still wonder if she's going to face Bianca. And if she faces Bianca, that's going to get interesting very, very quickly. Tiffany Stratton just came to the main roster. She's a heel. I don't think they need Naomi to be a heel on SmackDown. I think they need some strong baby faces. Charlotte Flair is still going to be out until the summertime. So I don't want to see. Plus, you put Naomi in the Bloodline, there's not many women that she could go up against. She's not going to go up against Scarlett. Scarlett's a heel. Zelina Vega will get tired very, very quickly. So, no, I would not put her in the Bloodline. I don't want to see that. I don't think it's a good idea. I know because of her marriage and, we need a female in the Bloodline. No, you don't need a female in the Bloodline. Why? Because she's a female? Like, why do you need a female in the Bloodline? It's not a sexist thing. There's no need for Naomi in the Bloodline. You want to put Tama Tonga or somebody else in the Bloodline because Jey Uso is no longer in there? Okay, maybe. But no, I don't put somebody in the Bloodline simply because they're married or they're part of blood. If you're going to put anybody in the Bloodline, if you really want to troll, you put fucking Nia Jax in the Bloodline. Put Nia Jax in the Bloodline and see how that goes. Oh my God, could you just imagine? They would be throwing garbage at Nia Jax. Put Nia Jax in the Bloodline, my friend. That's what I would do. Speaking of my friend, shout out to XXX. Thank you, XXX. DT, long time, my friend. My top 5 pay-per-view rankings of WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, Money in the Bank, Elimination Chamber, and SummerSlam. What's my rankings? Well, I don't know how old you are, but I go back a long ways. So, SummerSlam. Well, for me, WrestleMania is always number 1. Royal Rumble would be number 2 because I have rarely ever disliked the Royal Rumble match. Sometimes they're a little bit more predictable than others. Sometimes they don't have the surprises that you expect. That's why I don't buy into a lot of stuff that's reported online year in and year out, year in and year out. If you ignore that noise, you kind of have a better time. This year, people are like, the fuck, man, there was no surprises. The fuck, we didn't even have Sean Waltman. With all due respect, I like Sean Waltman. What the fuck do you think he was going to do in the Royal Rumble? Seriously. Fight for 45 seconds so the fans could chant, you still got it, and get thrown over the top rope by Austin Theory. Like, I love nostalgia. When Diesel came back, it was fun. It was awesome. But I don't go into something because I got to get surprises. So that's why I'm rarely disappointed with certain events. For me, WrestleMania number 1, Royal Rumble number 2. I used to put Survivor Series number 3, but there were too many years that Survivor Series was very underwhelming. However, with the return of War Games, I put Survivor Series as number 3. And Elimination Chamber, I kind of edge over SummerSlam. Because SummerSlam, SummerSlam is a premium live event, and maybe it's the second biggest event next to WrestleMania. But even SummerSlam, there was some years that it felt off. Didn't feel as important as it is now. I think 5 years from now, I think SummerSlam will probably be number 2 on a lot of people's lists, or number 3 next to the Mania and the Rumble. But those are my picks for my top 5. Thank you for that, XXX. Shout out to Dream 101. Did I see the AEW video where a big guy took Billy's Famouser and threw himself out the ring? Yes, I did. Was that one of the Bab Bronson guy? I didn't see who it was. You know, I'm going to go against everybody else. I'm going to blame it on the other person. Billy Gunn hit the Famouser on him. I don't blame him because I think whoever, you see, let me put it this way. If you, now when I say this, you'll notice it a little bit more than others. Sometimes you'll see WWE, you'll see somebody get a hot tag. And especially in a tag match with a hot tag. Hot tag is probably the most notorious you'll see this. Somebody will get a hot tag, they hit the ring, and they start beating on the heels, both heel opponents. One of the opponents will take a shot and then run to the middle of the side rope and then gets immediately clotheslined over the top rope. Sami Zayn did that not too long ago in a tag match. Whoever took that move, and again, I didn't pay attention who actually threw himself over the ring. I thought it was Bear Bronson. Forgive me if it wasn't him. But I looked at that, and my first reaction was somebody was supposed to give him a clothesline. Even if it wasn't, like if Billy Gunn gave a Famouser. I don't see Billy Gunn doing a Famouser because he has to leave his feet. I don't see Billy Gunn doing a Famouser and then popping up and giving somebody a clothesline over the top rope. I think somebody was supposed to clothesline him over the top rope immediately after he took the Famouser. Somebody else in that ring, I think, missed their cue. And I think what happened was that person, as soon as they took the Famouser, went to the middle rope, was expecting someone to clothesline them right over the top rope and go over. And because it's split second, that's why, you know, I don't find stuff like that acceptable, whether it's WWE, AEW, anywhere else, because somebody missed their timing. And especially if it, listen, that was a live show. None you could do about that. I think it was a live show. Yeah, I think it was Collision, right? But if it's a taped show, that should never make TV. And too many times when AEW is still doing Dark and Elevation, you would have stupid shit like that happen and they would leave it. Almost out of laziness. Nah, we don't want to edit. We want to show it in its rare form. No. You're making your promotion look worse. You're making the person look worse. You're giving people a reason to mock your promotion. Anybody that wants to troll your promotion will keep throwing that footage up there. If it is recorded, if it is taped, edit the shit out. You know, when somebody films a movie and there's accidentally a prop in the background, or if somebody burps or farts or hiccups or coughs or kind of like screws up their line, they don't just leave it in. They might show bloopers after the movie is over, but they don't just leave it in, cut, or they edit it out. Why that's left in when it's pre-recorded, I will never, ever understand that. Yeah, Butcher Vachon passed away, I believe, yesterday. I will definitely talk about it on Monday. I found out about it right before we went live. So I didn't get a chance to do a Man of Fame yet, but I will do one for Monday. All right. Shout out to Tristan. What do I think of the infamous match between Booker T and Buff Bagwell in Tacoma, Washington, 2001? Oh, my God. I remember that clearly. That was not the death of WCW. It is the representation of the failure of WCW in 2001. Listen, in 2001, fans, including me, still wanted WCW around. We just didn't want the product, the writing, a lot of aspects of WCW. We didn't like that. The idea of Vince McMahon and the WWF buying WCW was intriguing. The idea that Shane McMahon was going to own WCW because Shane was feuding with Vince at the time was intriguing. Fantasy matches were coming to mind right away. The thing that we were worried about, and I was doing hotlines at the time, the one thing that we were all worried about was contracts. I was close friends with Bam Bam Bigelow, God rest his soul. And a lot of you know my history with Bam Bam. When WCW closed down in 2001, Bam Bam got 6 figures and was getting paid to do nothing. And Mass Maniac and myself and Bam Bam Bigelow had a conversation a couple of years later when the money ran out and Bam Bam's wife, ex-wife at the time, took a lot of their money, emptied out his bank account without him knowing. But when he was talking about the contracts, he was going over and saying there's a lot of guys in WCW that are going to sit their shit out. They're sitting out their contracts, sitting out their contracts, sitting out their contracts. So we were wondering who's actually going to go to the WWF. And ultimately in 2002, TNA formed. So when NWA TNA formed and you saw a couple of guys, still not working in wrestling, you realize, okay, AOL Time Warner, I'm going to just sit my contract out. That's why Hogan, Hall, and Nash didn't go to WWE until after the AOL Time Warner contracts ran out. They were getting paid to stay home. So when they did the storyline of Shane taking over WCW, listen, I have brought this up 100 times in the last 23 years. And I'll say it again now. Invasion's pay-per-view, I don't care what culture tries to tell you. I don't care what Shitskeeda tries to tell you. I don't care what Bischoff or anybody else, well, not Bischoff, but because Bischoff wasn't in WWE at the time, but any other podcaster, Hall of Famer wants to tell you. The Invasion pay-per-view was one of the biggest pay-per-views in WWE history. It was not a disaster. It was not a clusterfuck. It was not a letdown. It was not a mess. And I will tell you why. Because going into Invasion, we knew exactly who was on the WWE roster. We knew exactly who was going to be on an Invasion. Sure, there was no Hogan. Sure, there was no Goldberg. Sure, there was no Flair. Sure, there was no others. We knew that they were sitting out their contracts. What was advertised is what was given. And they did what, 800,000 buys? They didn't get 800,000 buys, and fans were like, we expected the NWO. We expected Goldberg. We expected... No. We knew exactly who WWE hired, and those are the people that fought at Invasion. So when people want to tell you that the Invasion storyline is one of the worst things in WWE history, they are full of shit. They were not wrestling fans at the time. It was disappointing that bigger names were not part of it. But everybody that was advertised was part of it. So when Bagwell and Booker T had their match, the reason why it bombed was because they were advertising it as a WCW match. I think Scott Hudson was on commentary. I don't remember if Arn Anderson was on commentary. Why do I think Arn Anderson? But I know Scott Hudson was on commentary. And they were doing a WCW match on Monday Night Raw. The problem is WCW was the enemy up until 2001. So when you have a company that's the enemy, Booker T did not have a storied WWE career in 2001. He was part of the enemy, even though he was a good guy. And I don't remember him bashing WWE, WWF at the time. But these were enemies to WWE fans. So you're putting a match on Raw featuring two guys that WWF fans did not care about. And when Buff Bagwell, who had a bad reputation, Mama's boy, Judy Bagwell left a sour taste on everybody's mouth and the match went down, it was every reason to shit on it. These were not beloved WWE stars and you kind of give him a pass. All right, maybe it was nerves, it was pressure. A lot of people did not like Buff Bagwell. I certainly did not like Buff Bagwell. I have hotline reports still saved with myself, Matt Zombie, and Brian Damage from 2001 and 2002. And we had a field day making fun of Buff Bagwell. We did not like the man. When he got fired from the WWE, we were like, good, get the fuck out. Nobody liked the man. And probably a little undeserving, let's be honest, looking back in hindsight. But there was no reason for us to get really excited about it, because the two guys in the ring were considered enemy territory. We didn't feel as WWF. Listen, I was a fan of WCW as well. But when WCW closed, there was no longer a WCW. It was just WWF. TNA wasn't even around yet. In 2001, I think it was maybe XWF, WWF, ECW just closed out of business. XPW was still Cali only. So it was WWF, and that's it. So when you brought these two guys in there, it didn't feel like they were coming in for the betterment of WWF. They were coming in because they needed a job. So when the match sucked, we were like, okay, well, that's the reason why WCW went out of business. They don't deserve to be there. And that's why it got shitted on as much as it did. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, he said Arn Anderson was on commentary. I do remember that. I have not watched that match since 01. No reason for me to. I didn't like the match. Not a Buff Bagwell fan. I root for him now. As a human being, I want to see him do well. But didn't like him at the time. Match sucked. I was like, WWF did not need Bagwell at the time. Booker T, they didn't need him either. But I'm ecstatic that they did hire Booker T. Booker T, awesome. Love Booker T's work. So, okay. Sam says, please read the members chat. I had a good one. Oh, I see it. Yes, I do. See, I got different alerts now, so I have it saved. I have it saved. By the way, happy 2-month anniversary, my friend. If I could go to any WWE superstar and ask for a finisher, what superstar would it be? If I could go to any WWE superstar and ask for a finisher, now, you need to elaborate. Am I taking their finisher? Like, do I say, hit me with it? Or am I still doing my indie crap stuff and say, can I use your move? That's what we need to know. There's a big difference here. Because would I take their finisher? Here's a little tidbit. Oh, I could use it. Sam says I could use it. A finisher that I can use. Now, me being fat and older and a little bit lazy, it would have to be a finisher that, doesn't cause me to exert. Plus, I got metal screws and plates in my hip, so I can't land on my ass, on my back, my pussy and my crack. A finisher right now. Finisher right now. That's a good one. Whose finisher would I use? I'm trying to think of some. I never could do the RKO. I did it once, and I can't even describe what I was doing. It looked like that. It looked like I was diving in a pool, and I forgot to grab something, and I was like trying to grab it. What are some of your ideas? Somebody give me an idea. You know what I would love to do? I'd love to do the coup de grace. No, the 1916. I would do the 1916. Just picture my fat ass jumping off the top rope and landing on someone. Seriously, it would be like Invader #2. They would be bleeding profusely out there. They may have so much internal bleeding. You know what? I know which finish I would love to do. Being a bigger guy, I would do Nia Jax's the Annihilator. Is that what she calls it? No. Why does that not sound right? I would do Nia Jax's move. You literally just jump off the middle rope and you just kind of land on your feet, but you're kind of bent down and it looks like it's like a bonsai drop. 450. I can't even do I would love to do the frog splash. I did the DDT 2 times before. DDT is fun to do, but it really depends on the person you're giving it to. I gave this DDT once to this guy. I can't remember his name. And he probably didn't want to take it from me. So he kind of didn't like go down the same time I did. And it kind of looked like as if if somebody's got too much oil on their head and he kind of like slipped out of my arm. So it just looked like a mess. The Annihilator. Oh, so I was right. I would do the Annihilator. The pop-up powerbomb looks fun to do. The worst move that I ever took was the spinning neck breaker that the Masked Superstar used to do. The Rude Awakening. Somebody gave me the Rude Awakening once, and I got knocked for a loop because when I went down, I don't know if you ever seen the Rude Awakening. If you look closely, like if you don't do it the right way, the back of your neck and your head actually like falls on the person's shoulders. And I took it wrong, and my neck just went bluff like this, and I was seeing stars. But somebody put me in the neck breaker once, and I landed on the edge of steps and knocked myself out. Got knocked out. Brainbuster is fun. Brainbuster is fun. If I had a choice, if I was athletic enough, I would do a pile driver. Probably would do the pile driver more than anything else. Always loved that move. Always loved that move. I agree with you, Near, and thank you for 33 months being a member of the family. Pray for peace, absolutely. I see it on my feed. I have 90% of my people I follow on mute because I hate seeing negative stories, but some things, you can't turn your head to, and you want to be aware of what's going on. And it's a war that I don't see ending for decades. There'll be moments of, I don't want to say peace, but just people putting their weapons down and just moments of, just nothing going on. But it's the mindset. Unfortunately, it's a mindset, and, it just sucks for both sides. For both sides, it sucks. Even a ceasefire, even though ceasefires happen, there's still atrocities that happen. You just don't use explosives. I saw ceasefires in different countries, and you pay close attention and still atrocities happen. So shout out to Michael Gonzalez. Have I seen the Randy Orton A&E documentary? Yeah, I did. Kevin and I are going to talk about it on Monday. We did not have enough time Monday to get into it, but we are going to talk about it on Monday. I thought it was excellent. Listen, a lot of Randy Orton's life and career we already knew, but you get to see more footage that we never knew was there, was good as well. But yeah, no, I saw it. I thought it was excellent. The A&E biographies, sometimes they feel rushed. The Iron Sheik one was a good example of it. Iron Sheik, even though they did cover parts of his career that most places do not, they still skipped over a decent amount of moments in his career. But Randy Orton is a current star. So this going to include a lot more. If Randy Orton was retired for the last 20, 30 years, they would have skipped over a lot. Roderick Howard could have feud with Grayson Waller, help Austin Theory regain some of his lost momentum. If not, could another run in NXT help him? I don't know if you tuned in to Kevin and I's discussion on Monday, but we had a pretty long conversation about Austin Theory. Contrary to what Bischoff, yes, I pay attention what people say, and I see that somebody famous says a sentence and 10,000 people turn it into comments. I do not think, like Bischoff, that they should take Austin Theory off of TV. Austin Theory, barring injury and drive and wellness, Austin Theory has 20 years ahead to go still. Austin Theory does not have to be a major part of the TV product right now. Austin Theory is better now than what he was a year ago. I know a lot of people will say to me, DT, what are you talking about? He beat John Cena at WrestleMania a year ago. Yeah. And then what happened? Nothing. Then what happened? Nothing. The Vince McMahon Austin Theory rub, I hated it. I hated it. It felt strange. His stuff with the Way was fun. The Dexter Lumis stuff was weird. Like Dexter Lumis came off as a predator, but they were watching cartoons and eating cereal. Austin Theory is doing just fine. Him and Grayson Waller are two big parts of WWE's future. A lot of people still despise both. A lot of people still don't give a shit when I said, I have Grayson Waller and Austin Theory face each other at WrestleMania. I believe that match is happening. That is a hint of tomorrow. They have a long, especially Austin Theory. He's got 2 decades to go. There's no rush for Austin Theory. He's not damaged goods. He's gaining confidence. He got a rub from The Rock. He got a rub from John Cena. He got a rub from Randy Orton. He got a rub from the biggest motherfucking stars in wrestling history. And he did not look like a deer in headlights. Let them take their time with Austin Theory. You don't need to change anything. You don't have to force a babyface turn. Some of his comedic stuff with Grayson Waller is priceless. When Carmelo Hayes wanted to challenge Austin Theory and Grayson Waller accepted a match for Austin Theory, I even showed the slow motion. I couldn't stop laughing. Austin Theory looked like he was going to cry. I couldn't stop laughing at that segment. If I didn't give a shit about Austin Theory, I wouldn't have gave a shit about the segment. Austin Theory is doing just fine. Not everybody needs to be repackaged. Not everybody needs a big WrestleMania moment right now. Maybe his match against John Cena last year shouldn't have happened yet. But it did. But he's gotten 3 rubs from 3 major players. He even got a rub from Brock Lesnar when they did the selfie that time. I don't think people realize how big of a rub Austin Theory's gotten at times, and he's come off fine. He got a rub in Australia, and I thought he was great with Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. He came off as a legitimate dick. You want to see him get his ass kicked. I am all in on Austin Theory, but I also believe, take your time, man. Take your time. Don't need to rush it. People want immediate, big time, no. Take your time. Take your time. He's doing good. He doesn't have to be at the top of the card now. It's not needed. You have the Bloodline. You have Cody Rhodes. You got Randy Orton. You have LA Knight. You got the Judgment Day. You got Seth Rollins. You got Gunther. You got Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens. I could go down. You got 40 people that are ahead of him. He's not needed for that spot right now. 5 years from now, he'll have that spot. There's no rush for it right now. There's no rush for it. When Randy Orton first came up, he wasn't the legend killer right away. He wasn't, the focal point. They took their time and then they found their spot and then he ran with it. But even then, until it was this, people felt like, they weren't all in with Randy Orton. Take your time with Austin Theory. He's doing just fine. You don't need to be taken off TV for what? Repackaged for what? You repackage Austin Theory. What do you do next? Beat AJ Styles? What do you do next? How do you repackage him? You make him grow a beard? You shave his head? He changes his gimmick to what? Sometimes people say things with all due respect to people that I respect that are Hall of Famers. promoters, managers, but sometimes they say something, and then you really take a step back and think about it. You truthfully got to say, what the fuck are you talking about, Eric Bischoff? I fucking watch all of his podcasts with Conrad. I am a supporter. I will continue being a supporter. I love 83 Weeks. I am honored to be near the rankings with them, with Kev. But with all due respect, it's very easy to say, take him off TV, repackage him. Okay, genius. Tell me how you repackage him. What do you do? Take him off TV. Okay. Yeah, took him off TV. Now what? Repackage him to what? You make him a comedy act? You have him juggle? Shave his head? Become a woman? Become a comedian? Like, repackage him what? You know, people like to say, oh, repackage this person, take them off TV, give them but they don't tell you what it's supposed to be. It's very easy to criticize something. It's very easy to complain, but they don't come up with solutions. Give me the solution. You want to repackage him? Repackage him to what? Austin Theory is doing just fine. Let them take their time. There'll be a turning point where the fans will start seeing this guy's putting in the time. This guy's putting in the work. This guy's going to start getting over with the fans. Little by little, it'll happen naturally. See, with all due respect to Mr. Bischoff or anybody else that thinks that Austin Theory needs to be taken off TV and repackaged, you know what you're trying to do? You're trying to force him to get over with the fans instead of having it done organically. How Austin Theory gets over with the fans is putting in hard work. The fans will acknowledge hard work. Tiffany Stratton is a perfect example of that. Tiffany Stratton, when she first came in, she was daddy's girl. Daddy's girl. Almost like one of these girls that are in the car. Oh, how dare you take me to Starbucks on the first date? They didn't take her off TV. They didn't repackage her. They just let her find herself and just work, continue doing what she's doing, continue doing what she's doing. She got an opportunity with Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch pushed her a little bit. She kept doing, and now she's fucking over like Rover. They didn't have to repackage her. They have to take her off TV. She fucking found it. You don't need to change nothing with Austin Theory. Leave him alone. Let him find himself. Let him continue doing what he's doing. Let him continue putting in the hard work and the good matches, and the fans will start buying in, and they'll be like, yeah, this motherfucker's got it. He keeps fucking working hard. I'm telling you, fans appreciate that. All right. Believe it or not, we've gone almost 2 hours. It is almost time to go. And I definitely have to put a synopsis this week. I didn't do one last week or the week before, and like half the people complained. I'm like, tune into the show. Listen to the topic yourself. I hate sometimes forcing synopsises. On Mondays, it's different because we make it almost like a pay-per-view, but we're having conversations here. It's almost like, oh, if I don't like the topics they talked about, I'm not going to tune in. Oh, it's your loss. But I am going to put a synopsis up this week. I did watch most of Matt Riddle's interview with Ariel Helwani. Now, because he's put it out there, I will say it here now. Anybody that's followed my shows know some of what I'm about to say. When I had Misha on the show, one thing that I promised Matt Riddle beforehand is that we were not going to talk about wellness violations and personal things going on. I know people don't want to buy into this, and I get it for various reasons, but you know, even the strongest people out there, or even the people that you don't like out there, have issues with mental health. There is no perfect victim for mental health. It could be the nicest guy you like. It could be the biggest asshole that you hate. Mental health is mental health. And sometimes people have vices, to deal with mental health. I could tell you that everybody at some point deals with depression. Matt Riddle went through some issues. I promised that I would not bring it up. And you might have remembered about 2 months ago when I was going to consider interviewing Matt Riddle, I said, I am not the one to bring those things public. I even said Ariel Helwani is the one to bring those public. I'm sure a lot of you remember that. Some of the things that were really, really personal, I'm not a big show. I'm not going to clickbait to become a big show. I didn't feel that my show should be the show to reveal personal demons and other stuff. That's for an Ariel Helwani show to do. And it happened this weekend. I talked to Matt Riddle last week and the week before. He wants to come on. And I told him that if he comes on, I just want it to be casual convo. And it'll probably just be a Q&A. You all will have the opportunity to pick the topics. I'm not going to come up here and be like, oh, what made you get into wrestling? Who is your biggest feud? What do you think of Vince? What do you think of Randy Orton? Everybody's done that shit. If we're going to come on, it's going to be a casual conversation like I had with Misha, just like I had with anybody else. And he knows what I've been talking about. He knows about the JFK stuff that I said. Everything I said was 100% accurate. But people got mad that I would not make public that he got wellness for cocaine. It's not my place to do it. I don't care how big of a celebrity you are or not. It's still personal shit. And if somebody says to me, look, I don't want to talk about that brought up publicly. Okay, it's not my place to do it. I'm not going to make it public because I'm an asshole or I'm a journalist. I'm not a journalist. I opine. So when I did the interview, a discussion with Misha, he tuned into it first. And we were not going to make it public unless he was fine with it and he was cool with it. But I told him, I said, if we have a discussion, some of these things are going to come up. And, I don't want to talk about them until it's made public first. And obviously in the Ariel Helwani interview, he talked about it. So now, since it's out there, now I can elaborate a little bit more. But, one thing I will tell you, there were no drugs with the JFK stuff at all. But people don't want to hear that. But I thought the interview with Ariel Helwani was good. Very, very honest. What you see is what you get with him. I will say that. Even outside of wrestling, what you see is what you get. He's not a bad guy. He does like to party, and he does, like his vices. But sometimes it's done out of dealing with other issues. But, it is what it is. So my favorite color is purple. My favorite color has always been purple. All right, let's start bringing this home. We're at 1 hour and 53 minutes. We will finish in 5 minutes. I will be live with Kev on Monday. We definitely are already working on the topics for Monday's show. It's going to be a strong one. This past Monday was incredible. I was pretty taken back by Kev's rant about people not wanting the truth, instead just wanting a reason to shit on things. If you didn't hear it, it's a must hear. It's a must listen. So let's see. Who hasn't asked a question? Isaiah hasn't. Will WWE ever replace Def Rebel and get someone new for WWE entrance? Oh, okay. With the WWE entrance music. Yes, I do. Right now, they have a deal with, some music companies. The days of Jim Johnston are gone. Generic wrestling themes. Listen, sometimes a theme fits perfect. To me, I think, listen, I have some of my favorite themes of all time. To me, like The Undertaker, obviously, the gong, the funeral song is generic, but it fit them perfectly. But for some people like the Brood, that music is incredible. It just, some music fits the wrestler, and it's not even intended that way. But the days of music matching a gimmick are very, very rare. As long as the songs that are being put out are somewhat decent and the wrestlers like them, there's no reason to change it. You do listen to some songs and they do sound a lot like others. You listen to Chelsea Green's song and you listen to the woman performing it. You listen to some other entrance themes in the WWE and they sound almost exactly the same. It is what it is. I don't think people are complaining so much about WWE music right now. People complain when some people's music change. I agree, Gargano's music should not have been changed, but they wanted it more of a generic, like entrance song and not something so dramatic and emotional, because that older song that he had was very, very emotional to a lot of fans. Sometimes the music hits. When they tried to change the Street Profits, I fucking hated it. I hated it because they were trying to match an attitude change and it didn't work. But no, wrestling music is not what it used to be. Never will be. Any leaked WrestleMania card is a lie. There is no one, with all due respect, there is no one in the journalistic world that has that type of connection to the WWE writing team and TKO Group Holdings to have that pull. They don't. The wrestlers don't. It is bullshit. Trust me. Kevin and I have had conversations with people that actually work there. 95% of what you read is bullshit. It is bullshit. In fact, one thing I am going to call out bullshit on Monday is something that people brought to my attention today. Dave Meltzer reported that when Raquel Rodriguez had the flare-up of her MCAS, that WWE personnel were concerned that maybe they brought her in too soon, back too soon. That is beyond a lie. Because it's a disease that doesn't get put under control, doesn't go away, could flare up any fucking time it wants. There is no such thing. Well, maybe we brought it. You know how you bring somebody back too soon? If she looks like a fucking spotted, what's that spotted meat? If she looks like, I don't know, Raggedy Ann, and she's got red splotches all over her face, and they bring her to Elimination Chamber and she shows up for work. Hey, everybody. And she's got all these splotches on her face. Oh, I think we brought you back too soon. No, when they brought her back, she was clear. Came out of nowhere. That's what happens with that disease. The problem is, with all due respect, Mr. Meltzer, who I support and always will, but people like you and others never bothered to learn what MCAS is. It is an immune disease. It's something that affects your immune system, not just physically, but internally. And you could be sitting at home, watching TV, get a little bit of an itch, and the next thing you know, your face is red as a beet. Maybe we brought her back too soon. There was no flare-up when they brought her back. What he wrote was a lie. WWE personnel feels they might have brought her back too soon. You're a liar. Doesn't make sense. That's not what MCAS is. So, I hate having to clear up other people's shit. But we've been doing it for 27 years. We'll continue doing it. But the leaked WrestleMania card is assumption. People are guessing matches. Instead of just saying, I think they will go with Jade Cargill versus Bianca Belair. I think Logan Paul will take on Randy Orton. I think Austin Theory will take on Grayson Waller. No, instead of just talking about it, they got to write, my sources revealed that this is the considered card for WrestleMania. Ain't nobody that has that kind of pull. Believe me. Thank you for the kind words. Yeah, I don't like DIY's music. I hate music that has that pause that if the crowd is not into you, you hear awkward silence. And that's what happens when they go D-I-Y. And you got that awkward silence on there. And I'm like, oh, you got to bang out music from that split second. So even if the crowd is, non-existent to a reaction, the music kind of like overpowers it. All right. Oh, people, Sam says he questioned Dave Meltzer, got no response. No one out there is going to get responses from anybody out there. You should all know that by now. Nobody wants to admit that they're wrong. With the Triple H Rock stuff, I felt bad for him to an extent until I found out that all he did was delete it. And that's what Zero News did. With all the Mercedes Moné is going to debut in AEW last summer. WWE was sold to Saudi Arabia. Too many of these people online, they just delete it. And, all is good. We'll just delete it. And what angers me is that a lot of these places get tens of thousands of dollars of revenue, and they lie. And they purposely report false news. A lot of times they guess, and they guess grossly wrong, and they just delete it, and people still support it. So, that's one of the reasons why we pulled back on the shows a little bit too. I'm not going to compete on YouTube, especially with people out there just going to put out bullshit. If people want to follow those shows and soak in bullshit, then fine. Don't complain when I'm not here to shoot it down. That's why even like with the Sting stuff on Wednesday, like I'm watching all these people making these big discussions on Sting's Final Dynamite. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? This is not Sting's last Dynamite. Just because Tony Khan says it's Sting's last Dynamite, it's not his last Dynamite. And the ratings backed it up. If we thought this is going to be the last time Sting is going to be on Dynamite, I probably would have watched it. Maybe they should have done a nice ceremony or something, but it is what it is. So join us Monday night, and Kevin and I will be back in the Discord, 11:15 p.m. after Raw. There's an old saying, if you snooze, you lose. I apologize for those who like to tune in around 1 a.m. and they're like, oh, where can I replay the show? I'm like, nah, you tune into somebody else before us. You have to wait until the next day like everybody else. Kev and I will be doing a Q&A in the very near future. I have to talk to Kev as far as what day we're going to do it. I have to talk to him to see if it's going to be live, and I'll talk to him to see if it's possible we do it on YouTube. So I think if there's some monetary advancement with it, might, sway him to, do a little YouTube feed as well. It will be audio only. We are not going to start doing video. That's how we always did it before. And just like the template that Cornette does, we do the same thing. So, and for everyone out there that is going to check out Revolution this Sunday, enjoy it. I definitely plan on watching most of it. If there's a couple of matches that are skippable, I will skip them without a doubt. But it looks like listen, if you're a strong AEW fan, this card is good. Some of the matches are very predictable. Make no mistake about it. I think the big question is, does Swerve become champion? Does MJF make his return? I think that is needed. I'll say this in closing. AEW did 822,000 viewers to close Dynamite this past Wednesday. And the one thing I keep seeing, which I think is wrong, is the people that laugh and say no million, no million, no million. It was funny a year ago. Now I just think people are just trolling the troll. But what I also think is ridiculous when I see people say out there, don't worry, Once Okada and Mercedes show up, they'll get their million. How does that suck when you have a loaded roster like they have right now, and it takes Okada and Mercedes Moné to show up to get you over 1 million viewers? That should not be. Mercedes Moné, even though I'm a fan of hers, and even though she is great, she's one of the top women in wrestling, no question. She should not be the one to get 200,000-300,000 viewers back to watch an AEW. You want to get some casual WWE fans that want to see her shit? Fine. But when people say to me, don't worry, when Mercedes and Okada come in, they'll break their million. They'll stay over. You said that about Jay White. You said that about Will Ospreay. You said that about whoever else. You can't keep saying it every year. Oh, they said that about Adam Copeland. They said it about this person. You can't keep doing that. You know, the answer is not. Let's just, because really all you're doing is, okay, you know, I'll just add something and add something and add something, you know, and that'll make it better. No, you got to kind of fix what you have. You should not need 175 wrestlers to get 1 million viewers. Right now, they have 165 wrestlers, if I remember correctly. You should not need almost 175 wrestlers to get 1 million. You look at WWE every week. How many people do you think are on TV? 50? 60 at the most? How many people do you think were on SmackDown tonight that actually wrestled? Austin Theory, Randy Orton, Tiffany Stratton, Naomi, Santos Escobar, Carlito. Dark match, pretty deadly. Cedric Alexander and Ashante Adonis. Maybe Cody Rhodes wrestled tonight. I don't know. So even if there was another 2 dark matches, that means they would have 14 wrestlers on. Yes, AEW does not have 175 people wrestling every week. My point is, you get a good 30, 40 people over, not on the same level, but you get them over enough. There is no reason why they can't draw 1 million right now. And just adding and 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 adding should not be the answer. Because when that doesn't happen, who do you add next? And every time you add someone else is getting more lost in the shuffle. See Miro. See Powerhouse Hobbs. Even Wardlow to an extent. You just go on and on and on and on and on. So, all right, everybody, I'm out of here. Much love. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I hope you can join Kevin and I on Monday night for your next Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle show. I will be here next Friday night. And, yeah, Rock will be on next week. Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes will be on, giving their response. And they'll be one step closer to WrestleMania 40. So you all have a good weekend. Much love as always. Catch you all again soon.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the hosts. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other.
I hate going off the air and realizing that I miss somebody, especially something like this. Kevon Lewis, you snuck this one in. I don't remember you sending this. Choose one movie to keep and one movie that never gets made. Goodfellas or The Godfather? Growing up, I watched The Godfather at least 50 times. It's not an easy movie to watch straight through, especially when you watch 1 and 2 together. But Goodfellas, by far, is blown me away. So, in a perfect world, I could do without The Godfather. Being an Italian and having relatives from overseas and everything like that, I mean, Listen, it's part of history, but do I care about Italy in the 1900s, the 1910s, the 1950s? No, I'm living in the year 2024. I lived in the 70s. So to see Goodfellas end up in the early 80s, which is when Henry Hill got arrested and everything like that, Goodfellas is more contemporary. Goodfellas I would keep. Godfather I would get rid of. Godfather is an awesome mafia movie to learn about the history of the mob and things that happened in the 40s, the 20s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. Godfather 3 I couldn't stand. Did not like Al Pacino in that movie at all. When his daughter got killed and he was on the steps and there was no audio, I was like, good. If I could, I would have did it myself. Never liked it. T. Smitty 3000, I was at SmackDown. Rock and Bloodline got more cheers than boos, as they should. They're entertaining as fuck. Wrestling fans know these are entertainers. Wrestling fans know that Cody and Rock don't truly despise each other. Rock told everyone 2 weeks ago, sit back and just enjoy the ride. Easy up. Stratton and Bron got nice pops. Jade got a huge pop. Had fun, and the crowd was hot. Rest in peace, Virgil. Thank you, T. Smitty, for that. Yeah, Tiffany Stratton has arrived. Jade Cargill, I think next week we should see an advancement with Jade Cargill. Because whatever the advancement is, the follow-up is the week after. Then we only have 2 weeks left for WrestleMania. If my numbers are correct, which should be. There's only, I think, 5 SmackDowns left before WrestleMania. So when you think about it, next week, something's got to advance with Jade. The week after, whatever the advancement is, it gets locked, and then you got 2 weeks to hype it, and then you got to go home. So now I can officially exit. So my apologies for sending this in late, but as we went off the air, I looked and I was like, oops, sorry about that. So be well, everybody. I'll catch you all again soon. Good night.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.